The settlement ruins still smoldered when Rav arrived. His massive form moved through the wreckage with predatory grace, each step deliberate, his 6-clawed feet crunching over broken glass and twisted metal. The Krell Alpha's silver-black fur bristled as he scanned the destruction, his 3 eyes taking in every detail of what had been a thriving research outpost mere hours ago. The raiders had been thorough. The prefabricated structures lay collapsed, their skeletal frames exposed to Kepler 442b's crimson sky. Equipment lay scattered and destroyed. Bodies both human and Krell dotted the landscape like discarded toys. Rav's mandibles clicked in barely controlled rage. This had been neutral ground, protected by the Accord. Yet someone had violated that sacred treaty. A sound stopped him mid-stride. Singing. Rav's auditory membranes swiveled, tracking the source. It was coming from beneath a partially collapsed habitat module, the melody soft and strangely rhythmic. He knew that sound human vocalization, though he'd never heard one quite like this before. Cautious now, the Alpha approached, his combat instincts warring with curiosity. What he found made his breath catch in his thorax. A human female sat in the ruin's shadow, her back against a support beam, covered in dust and streaked with blood, some of it clearly her own. But it was what she held that froze Rav in place. His cubs, both of them, Kessa and Thane, barely 8 weeks old, lay curled in the human's lap. Their tiny forms rose and fell with sleep-heavy breathing, their needle-sharp claws retracted, their iridescent scales catching the fading light. The human, impossibly small by Krell standards, had wrapped them in what looked like the remains of a thermal blanket, cradling them with a tenderness that seemed at odds with the devastation surrounding them. She looked up as Rav's shadow fell across her, and he saw the exhaustion in her dark eyes. No fear, just bone-deep weariness and something else. Determination, perhaps, or defiance. "You must be Rav," she said, her voice hoarse. "I'm Mira, research xenobiologist. Sorry about the mess." Rav found himself unable to move. His cub's offspring of the Alpha pair, meant to one day lead the Krell coalition, were sleeping peacefully in the arms of a species his people had warred with for 3 generations. Every instinct screamed at him to attack, to retrieve his young, to eliminate the threat. But Kessa chose that moment to stir, making the small chirping sound she only made when content, when safe. "How?" Rav managed, his translator struggling with the complexity of his emotion. Mira shifted slightly, wincing. "The raiders came at dawn. Weapons, fire, chaos. Your mate." She paused, pain flickering across her features. "She fought like nothing I've ever seen, took down 7 attackers before they overwhelmed her. With her last breath, she pushed these 2 toward me. I don't know why. I don't know if she knew what she was doing, or if it was just instinct, but I understood. Protect them. So I did." Rav's legs nearly buckled, his mate, dead. The knowledge crashed over him like a physical blow. Yet here were his cubs, alive, sleeping peacefully because a human had chosen to shelter them instead of fleeing to safety. "The nursery collapsed," Mira continued, her words coming faster now, as if she needed to tell the story before her strength gave out. "I grabbed them and ran. Found this pocket in the rubble. The raiders were hunting survivors, so I had to keep them quiet. I remembered reading that Krell cubs respond to low-frequency sounds, so she gestured vaguely. "I sang my grandmother's lullabies. They calmed down and eventually fell asleep." Thane yawned, exposing rows of developing fangs, then nuzzled deeper into the crook of Mira's arm. She automatically adjusted her hold, supporting his weight with practiced ease. "You're injured," Rav observed, noting the makeshift bandage on her leg, the way she favored her left side. "Shrapnel. Burns. Nothing that'll kill me if I get medical attention soon." She looked down at the cubs. "But I couldn't risk moving them. If the raiders came back, if I left shelter." She shrugged, then immediately regretted the movement, her face going pale. Rav moved closer, slowly, giving her time to react. When she didn't flinch, he knelt, bringing his massive head level with hers. Up close, he could see the tracks tears had made through the dust on her face, could smell the blood and smoke clinging to her, could sense the way her body trembled with suppressed pain. "You stayed," he said quietly. "You could have run. Should have run. Yet you stayed with cubs that are not your own, of a species that has killed your kind." Mira met his three-eyed gaze steadily. Their babies. Nothing else mattered. Something shifted in Rav's chest. The Krell had spent decades trying to understand humanity, their recklessness, their emotional volatility, their bizarre attachment to fairness and justice, even when it disadvantaged them. In this moment, kneeling in the ruins of what should have been a safe haven, he finally understood. Humans were dangerous not because of their weapons or their tactics or their stubborn refusal to submit. They were dangerous because they could hold the offspring of their enemies and choose compassion over survival, because they could see past species and conflict to something more fundamental, because when everything burned, they would sacrifice themselves for cubs that weren't even their own. Carefully, reverently, Rav extended his primary arms. "May I?" Mira nodded, helping transfer the sleeping cubs to their father's embrace. They stirred, but didn't wake. Recognizing his scent, his warmth, Rav held them close, his heart's hammering. "Thank you," he said, the words feeling inadequate. "You have given me back my bloodline, my future. I am in your debt. Mira of Earth." She smiled weakly. "Just get me to a medic, and we'll call it even." Rav stood, securing his cubs in the natural pouch his species used for carrying young. Then, with infinite care, he lifted Mira into his secondary arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile in ways Krell never were. "The debt is not even," he said as he began moving toward the emergency beacon he'd activated upon arrival. "But it is a beginning." As rescue ships descended through the crimson sky, Rav looked down at the human who had saved his children. The war wasn't over. The treaty remained broken. Distrust still ran deep on both sides. But perhaps, he thought, there was hope yet. If one human could show such courage, such compassion in the midst of chaos, then perhaps peace wasn't the impossible dream his people believed it to be. Kessa chirped again, and beside her, Thane began to purr a sound Krell cubs only made when completely safe. In his arms, Mira finally allowed herself to close her eyes. The Alpha carried them all toward safety, and toward a future that suddenly seemed a little less dark.